U.S. military isn't the only machine rolling through the Middle East with guns blazing this week.
Patrick Reed, you little beauty!
Patrick Reed, he is on a tear. I've been watching him every morning with my coffee, playing. He was in Dubai, played great, won the Hero. This past weekend, Bahrain, he lost in a playoff, but again, he's playing consistent golf, and that's never the issue for P. Reed. But Patrick Reed made a last-minute impulsive decision that just kind of highlighted his character, hurt his teammates, because he believed that if he was a hero by quitting LIV and going to the PGA Tour, he could, ride in the jet wash of Brooks Koepka and everybody would finally like him. And that's all P. Reed ever wanted, was people to like him. The problem is they're not the same. Why? Brooks Koepka is friends with all the Jupiter Golf guys. He plays with them all the time. He hangs out with them. That's never gone away when he went to LIV, right? And Koepka is a big event player. He likes to show up in the majors. He likes to show up when there's a lot of pressure on. So maybe this week in the Waste Management will be good, but he's not as consistent as Patrick Reed. So Patrick Reed's on the course play speaks for itself, but it's off the course. Maybe some of you don't remember why P. Reed is one of the most hated men in golf. It goes all the way back to college at the University of Georgia, where he was accused of stealing from his teammates, which include Harris English, Brian Harman, and I believe Russell Henley were his teammates in college. He went to University of Georgia, was kicked off for cheating and stealing, and then went to Augusta State, where it just continued. He cheated in a qualifying round in college, and he reportedly stole a lot of money, a watch, and some other things. This came out in a 2015 or 16 story by a reporter who did his due diligence, and it turns out Patrick Reed stole like $400. The players saw him show up the next day with a big wad of cash. They asked him where he got it, and he said he won it off a professor, and he named the professor. Well, guess what? They talked to that professor, and it turns out he didn't know what Reed was talking about. They hadn't played. So his lack of character and cheating and just his douche persona started a long time ago. When he came on tour, he played really well. There's nothing wrong with his play, but he kind of labeled himself one of the top 5 golfers in the world after his first win. Players didn't like him because he was dishonest, because of his cheating, because of his attitude. And then, of course, he got caught cheating, right? The infamous making contact with the sand in a waist area to improve his lie. Now, in a waist area, you can ground your club, but you can't improve your lie, and that's what he did. Twice, and it was zoomed in, it was in high definition. He denied it. Then his wife created some kind of fake account on Twitter where she started saying crazy stuff about he was set up. It's fake news. They want to make him look bad, and it is just hilarious. And it made the drama in golf. This is way before the LIV PGA drama. It created a serious amount of drama in golf. And it wouldn't stop there. In the last couple of years, he hit a ball into a tree off the tee. There was only a few fans there. They reported they saw it go over out of bounds. Okay, the cameras followed it. They didn't see it go in the tree. They lost it out of bounds. But guess what? P. Reed identified his ball in the tree, so he could get a more favorable drop. It doesn't stop. And then I think it was last year, or the year before, he was at one of the majors where the LIV guys play with PGA, and he threw tees down at Rory McIlroy, maybe for some statements Rory McIlroy said. So Patrick Reed coming back to the PGA Tour is going to be nothing like Koepka. The players don't like him. They don't want him in the locker room. The fans don't like him, because who likes a cheater in golf? And I've given him the benefit about the sand incident in the past, but when you start looking at all these other incidents and then what he did to his teammates on the 4 aces on LIV, made me question my perspective on Patrick Reed. And you can make your own decision. A week before he won in Dubai, he was with his teammates, Thomas Pieters, Thomas Dietrich, and Dustin Johnson. They did their photo shoot for the year for LIV. They had all their new sponsors. They had, shots of them at the driving range. They announced it on social media, and they were set to go for the 2026 season. But when Reed won the Hero in Dubai, and he saw all the positive news Brooks Koepka was getting, and he realized they gave him special conditions to come back. He made a calculated decision that he can ride that wave, and it would be the right thing to do, and everybody will like him, except he screwed his teammates. And we know he screwed his teammates because they released the promo video on their social media, the Four Aces, Dustin Johnson's team, because they have a new partnership with Swag Golf. I implore you, go watch it. It's hilarious. They basically blur out Reed. They say some pretty nasty things in the headline, kind of aimed at him. And when it was his turn to talk in the video, they gave him one of those like witness protection voices. And it's absolute trolling. It's hilarious, but it just goes to show Reed only cared about himself, didn't think about his teammates, didn't think about anything else. And then the PGA, when he informed them he was coming back, Brian Rolapp didn't make any conditions for him to come back like they did for Brooks Koepka. No, he's got to do the same thing Laurie Cantor did last year. If you remember Laurie Cantor, he played on LIV. He was in a few events, so and then he got relegated. He didn't qualify for LIV again, so he sat out a year, just played on the DP World Tour. He finished in the top 10 in 2025 on the DP World Tour. He earned his PGA Tour card, and he was qualified to play because you got to sit out 1 year. And you know what he did? He took the card, and then he announced a few days later that he was signing with the Majestics, the team from England, Ian Poulter and Lee Westwood's team, and he did not go to the PGA. He went back to LIV. So P. Reed, infamous villain. Sure, golf needs a villain. We need somebody to root against just as much as we need somebody to root for. We can't just have Scotty Scheffler running away with it every week. So it'll be interesting to see what his reception is. He's got to sit out a year. He'll continue to play on the DP World Tour. He's blazing through the Middle East right now, playing well. He won the Hero by 4 shots. I watched it. He probably could have won by more. He had a couple slip-ups at the end. And then this past weekend in Bahrain, he was playing solid golf. First hole of the playoff, he bogeyed the hole. So the other 2 guys moved on. It was a young guy, Scott from Germany, and Callum Hill. I'm not sure where he's from in Europe, but poor Hill, man, on the second hole of the playoff, he must have gripped hard on that driver because he yanked it, duck hooked it left, horrible shot, out of bounds. He hit his next shot, kind of right next to a trap, and then he shanked it. He literally shanked his shot into the scoreboard, knocked stuff down, and then he hit it onto the green. It actually conceded to Scott. It was a pretty sad finish. I've never seen a pro finish like that. So that pressure somehow got to him, which is weird because he had played really consistent for 4 days. But right behind P. Reed in Bahrain was Sergio Garcia, who could have outright won the event. He finishes in 3rd place, 1 stroke behind Reed, and Sergio, he would have won. He was 18 under, and on like the 15th hole, he had a double bogey, which knocked him down to 16 under. That's how he'd finish. But anyways, it was great golf. The last couple of weeks have really delivered in the Middle East. And P. Reed moves on. He's going to play in Qatar next week and see if he could just keep rolling in the Brooks Koepka jet wash, and maybe people will like it. On the PGA Tour, it was the Brooks Koepka show at the Farmers. It didn't matter if you love him or hate him. All the coverage you watch, you had to see the guy that finished almost DFL. Not quite DFL. He beat like 8 to 10 golfers. He was like almost 60th place. He hit the ball pretty good, but he could not putt. He couldn't putt at all. I'm a fan of Koepka. I've been to a bunch of LIV events. I followed him. He brings a great energy. I saw him at the US Open a few years ago. He's a great player to follow, brings a great vibe. Everybody likes him, even though he's kind of a douche on and off the course. But heck, ESPN, they made special programming so people could follow him during the week. I bet he wasn't going to make the cut. He did by 1 shot. So good for Brooks. I'm always a fan. I'm always going to root for him because I just like the way he plays. And I kind of like his cocky, douchey attitude. But Justin Rose, he was actually the winner, the Farmers. You probably only know Brooks Koepka played. And he crushed the field. The 45-year-old won by 7 strokes. He was on fire. He was definitely in a flow state, in the zone, the thing we all want to achieve as a golfer, just where you can't do anything wrong. Every shot is just like a dream. If you play golf all the time, you're a sicko. I'm sure you have those rounds, obviously not in a PGA event, win by 7, but he had that feeling where you're just on top of the world. So Jay Rose, great guy. I love him. He's not box office, but it's cool to see an older guy really clean up on tour. But if you look at the Farmers top 20, again, this is like the 3rd or 4th week in a row. There is no box office stars. There is no excitement in there. There's great golf. There's a bunch of young guys that you could replace one for the other, where they have a very similar game. Joel Damon, he got in. Thank you, Brooks Koepka. Because if you remember, every event Brooks plays, they're going to add slots in the field so no players can be like, oh, it's not fair. So Joel Damon was able to get in. He ended up finishing top 10, and that he was able to turn that into an exemption for this coming week at the Waste Management. Or if you remember last year, he took his shirt off, I think it was, on that crazy 16th. Was it 16, the par 3, which is an awesome hole. It makes that tournament so fun. And of course, what also makes the Waste Management fun is all the clips on social media of golf fans that are wasted out of their mind. They're doing stupid things, falling all over the place. Last year, they had to cut off the entrance. They had to cut off the bar. And well, I'm going to be sitting back with my popcorn to see what happens this week. But besides Joel Damon in the top 20, unless you're a diehard Hideki Matsuyama fan, no excitement in the field as far as brands. And every sport needs stars, which was the reason LIV was created, right? Whether you love it or hate it, they got a group of a dozen or so of the biggest box office dramatic stars in the game. They're the type of guys that even if they're not winning a tournament, they have galleries following them, i.e. Phil Mickelson, Koepka until he left, Bryson DeChambeau. It just doesn't. Sergio Garcia. If you've been to a LIV event, you know what I'm talking about. They could be 5-10 strokes off the lead, but the way they play and their demeanor and just the excitement they are as their own personal brand draws in galleries and attention. So Koepka, a lot of pressure on him. I hope he does well this week at the Waste Management. Definitely has to work on his putting, but the PGA kind of lifted him up, and they know they need box office players. Scotty Scheffler is amazing, and for all of us in the golf world, we know that. We love this guy, but he's not box office. He's bland. He's vanilla. He's kind of boring. So outside, again, we talked in last week's episode to try to transcend the game, to cross over, to bring in more people to the game, to keep people interested in an event over 4 days. You need some box office in there. So Koepka brings that. What do we got going on LIV? LIV kicks off this week. It's an interesting week as far as schedule. It's a 4-day event for the first time. They're going from 54 to 72 holes, and they're playing in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, home of His Excellency, right? The PIF Saudi fund that is the founders of LIV. This is their home base. So they kick off here. I don't think it's the most exciting tournament. There's only a couple thousand fans in the crowd there. In fact, all these Middle East tournaments just don't draw huge golf crowds. So the way LIV tries to make it exciting is it's under the lights. And I remember last year, I think Adrian Morocco won. Not only is it under the lights in the desert at night, they have these laser lights going in the background of the tournament the whole time, and it makes it really cool to watch because it's something different. It's just not a straight up course, and it's certainly not Augusta, so it doesn't have that tradition or that heavy feel. But it's kind of cool to see just the stuff Anthony Kim has posted right here, practicing this week with the lights that go on. It makes it fun. Not every player loves playing the lights. I watched some of the interviews. But so LIV will kick off 4 days. Phil is out this week. He's out for 2 weeks. He has a family issue back in California, so that's kind of sad because I'll watch LIV. I'm going to watch LIV in Waste Management this week. And it's kind of a bummer. I love Phil's energy whenever he's in an event. But Scott O'Neill, the CEO of LIV, he's got a real problem. Bryson, I could not find the video footage of his interview because I want to hear it in context. But he said some more pretty bad comments. If you are someone who loves LIV and wants Bryson to sign his contract at the end of the year, he specifically said, at least this is what I read, that the move to 72 holes wasn't what they signed up for. And that's kind of like a negative twist. And he said a couple things that didn't sound that positive. So this is like a situation where Bryson's going to be just locked in on a contract to be one of those players, like in every sport, that just says negative things all season because they won't let him out of his contract, or he's using the opportunity on a microphone to get some of the changes he wants to happen in LIV, because in other interviews, he praises the idea that he owns his own franchise. He gets to sell his own merchandise. They bring in big sponsors. It rolls over to his YouTube, which is like one of the biggest performing sports YouTube channels there is. So Scott O'Neill needs to button it down, because you had P. Reed walk out the back door. Koepka, I put Koepka aside. He had some serious family stuff going on. And I've been to LIV. As a matter of fact, the first year I was at a couple LIV events, Jenna, his wife, was by herself, literally outside the ropes, just walking around following Brooks. And I got a chance to talk to her. She seemed so sweet and nice, but this was son, right? They had no kids. So they were a young couple traveling the world, rich. His brother was part of the deal, was also playing on LIV. So now Koepka and his brother and his wife and maybe their friends were traveling the world playing golf. But then they had a child, and his kid, his son, had some serious medical issues that were so much. I think he had to miss a LIV event at one time, but there was some scary stuff that went on. And then last year, on top of it, they had a late term miscarriage. And if any of you are parents or have gone through that, you know how sad and stressful that can be to a family, especially with another young child that might think there's a brother or sister. So the things Brooks Koepka went through last year were real, right? The things he had to deal with. So for that guy not to want to be on the other side of the world for 3 weeks at a time, to be a family man, to be there with his son, it just makes sense. So I'm glad the PGA Tour welcomed him back. I'm glad LIV let him out of the contract. But the P. Reed situation, the words from Bryson, and I don't know. I feel like Scott O'Neill really needs to either get it together and try to get in front of some of this stuff, or else LIV is going to be short-lived, no pun intended. And I like LIV. I enjoy it. Like, I love golf. I talk about it all the time. I go to PGA events. I go to LIV events. I do not go to them thinking they're going to be the same thing. I go to LIV events because those are the superstars of golf, like I mentioned before. And you can just, you just watch Bryson play a few holes. Even watching Phil play at 55, it is remarkable the things he does with the ball. Following Cam Smith or Sergio or some of these young guys. I didn't get a chance to see Tom McKibben or Jose Ballester or Caleb Surratt. I have not seen those young guys, but they are awesome. Think about that. Tom McKibben skipped college, was a Rory McIlroy protege. He joined LIV last year. He plays on John Rahm's team. And how do young guys on LIV become brands and get in the majors? Well, he won the Hong Kong Open. Who had a relationship with the Masters? If you win the Hong Kong Open, you get in the Masters. So he's going to be in majors. So we'll see how Tom McKibben does. But yeah, LIV's got to clean it up. I'm looking forward to them kicking it off. It's Wednesday at 10 o'clock, right? So it's 10 o'clock a.m. on East Coast time, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday on Fox Sports. I'm excited. And then in the afternoon, I'm excited to watch the Waste Management and watch the crowd on that par 3 go nuts. But one thing that's happening at LIV as well, they haven't announced a replacement for Patrick Reed, and they tee off tomorrow. So I don't know what's happening there. Now, Phil has an emergency family thing, so they replaced him with Ali Schneider-Jans, but they haven't announced who's going to be the 4th ace. So that's pretty dramatic. So coming up this week, I think we're going to find out a couple things. Who replaced Patrick Reed, which is probably going to be one of the big Asian Tour, DP World Tour guys, because P. Reed screwed them over last minute. They had to pick somebody up quick. And then the OWGR had met regarding LIV last week. Scott O'Neill and Brian Rolap are friends. I don't know what's going to happen. So I hope they get world ranking points, but either way, those guys all play enough DP World Tour events and international series that if they're playing well, they can earn some points. And some of those events have pathways into the majors. Speaking of that, the DP World Tour every year has to give its best 10 players to the PGA Tour. So it makes it very hard for the World Tour to grow. Imagine if you were like a sports franchise and every year, like, okay, the best guys are gone. Let's start over again. You cannot build box office players. You cannot expand the league. And that's why a lot of the DP World Tour events are just, they're poorly attended. They're worse than like the Senior Tour or the Champs Tour here in the US. Nobody goes to those events unless Rory shows up or Shane Lowry or um John Rahm, right? Or Cam Smith, some of the live guys. Dustin Johnson just played in Dubai at the DP World Tour event. Waco Neiman plays in those events. David Poo's just won one of the DP World events in Australia, another young live guy. So if the DP World Tour partnered up with live, I think it would be better for global golf for everyone. That way they can still allow players to go to the PGA Tour that earn a card, but they're not losing revenue and the ability to sell tickets and get eyeballs at events because you have the guys from live coming in, which they already do, but an actual financial partnership and a rebranding partnership could turn the DP World Tour and live tour into this giant, massive global golf entertainment brand. We know the PGA is not going to let that happen. But DP World Tour did one good thing this week. They announced that live players playing in the DP World Tour will no longer have to pay fines starting this year. And that was huge news because Terrell Hatton and John Rahm owe like $6 million in on-paper fines for every time they teed it up and live golf. They accrued a $100,000 fine over like 3 years. And then if you go play in the DP World event, you add that to the tally. So I know they're negotiating behind the scenes to lower that amount. So I think that would be good. We don't talk about that enough. Let me know your thoughts on that. If DP World Tour and live teamed up to bring global golf by combining resources, financials, and, more branding, because DP World Tour is kind of like a stale brand. Live at least brings a little excitement. You don't have to bring all the lights and the colors, but you could do something working together, find a common interest, and change golf on a global level. Lastly, this week, if you watch the LPGA, you're shaking your head. It's so sad. They played in Orlando, big first event of the year. Nelly Korda wins, which is great because it's great for LPGA. She didn't win last year, and she's box office, huge star, but they shortened it to 54 holes because of the weather. Oh, what was there? A storm, right? Thunder, lightning, giant snowstorm in Orlando? No, it was cold, and the winds were blowing 30, 40 miles an hour. So what? So does the British Open or the Open or when they play the Irish Open. That's the whole point. We like to tune in and watch these golfers like survive the elements, right? How are they going to hit a shot? And some of the statements they were saying just kept getting worse. Like, oh, well, when you try to hit the ball left, it would go right. Okay, that happens to me every day when I play in Connecticut and it's windy out. The greens were hard. They weren't that receptive. So what? So the LPGA made a huge mistake by cutting that tournament short just like that. Nelly Korda was up by 3. Hey, she shot a 64 in those conditions. But on Sunday, they were on NBC in prime time. What a better way to grow eyeballs on women's golf than showing them in prime time on NBC fighting the elements. And they're in Orlando. It looked like they were playing in Maine the way they were bundled up. They missed an opportunity, but they also took a step backwards, I think. Because guess what? Now you're not going to see Nelly Korda at any event, she said, for like almost a month or so, more than that. And I think that's bad for the LPGA. So that's it for this week. I'll talk to you soon.